What are you doing? Oh my God. What are you doing? Mariah Carey is stripping on TRL right now. Is it my birthday that I didn't know about it? Wow.
You like this?
Holy mackerel.
You like this?
Hey, can we get the AC cranked down? The AC, crank it down, get nice and close. Wow.
You like this?
What are you doing? What did you bring?
I'm trying to. You're my therapy session right now, Carson.
Okay,
you
what's
see,
wrong?
every now and then, somebody needs a little therapy.
2001. What is there to say about this year that hasn't already been said? 2001 was a pretty crazy and eventful year from start to finish, with some of the biggest pop culture moments to ever exist. As the second year of the new millennium, so much happened that left a lasting impact on everyone, good and bad. Throughout the year, we witnessed so many new TV shows, major film releases, iconic sports moments, musical releases, fashion trends, technology, celebrity scandals, and a national tragedy that greatly altered the course of American history, making 2001 one of the most memorable, iconic, bittersweet, bizarre, and chaotic years we have ever lived through. 2001 was definitely an unforgettable experience for those who lived through it and remember the events that took place. I was just graduating kindergarten this year, but I remember most of the events that happened throughout the year, as they had a major impact on my childhood. So I thought it would be fun to make yet another video looking back at one of the most craziest years of the 2000s, and to see what major pop culture moments defined the year as a whole. From January to December, 2001 was a pretty eventful year with some of the most unforgettable pop culture moments we have ever witnessed. This was the second year of the 21st century and greatly left a lasting impact on society as a whole. In sports, the Arizona Diamondbacks won the World Series, defeating the Yankees. Ray Bourque won the Stanley Cup in Game 7 at the Stanley Cup Finals. Tiger Woods won the Masters. Barry Bonds scored his 77th home run. And Serena Williams lost to her sister Venus in the final of the US Open, and this was actually the first time that sisters actually played against each other in a Grand Slam. The LA Lakers won the NBA Finals against the Philadelphia 76ers, while Michael Jordan returned to the NBA for 2 more seasons on the Washington Wizards. At this year's Super Bowl, the Baltimore Ravens defeated the New York Giants by a score of 34-7, and the Bottlegate situation that happened where angry Browns fans rioted by throwing mostly beer bottles and trash cans at referees and players, and to nobody's surprise, because of this, the game was cancelled. 2001 was also a year full of many major technological advancements that took place that really changed the game. Windows XP, Bluetooth connectivity for cell phones, camera phones, USB flash drives, and the famous websites Wikipedia and LinkedIn were all launched throughout the year, while Steve Jobs launched the first generation Apple iPod, which allowed users to carry an entire collection of music with them in their pockets instead of carrying CDs around. This year has been retrospectively considered to be one of the best and most important in video game history due to the release of numerous critically acclaimed, commercially successful, and influential titles across all platforms and genres at the time. Nintendo launched their GameCube and Game Boy Advance consoles, while Microsoft launched their first generation Xbox gaming console later in November of that year. These 3 consoles really changed the gaming industry, leaving behind a legacy that will most likely never be topped. The Xbox was also the first major console produced by an American company since the release of the Atari Jaguar back in 1993, becoming one of the most popular video game consoles to ever exist. Speaking of video games, some of the most popular video games released this year included Final Fantasy X, Grand Theft Auto 3, Animal Crossing, Madden NFL 2002, NBA Live 2002, NBA 2K2, WWF SmackDown Just Bring It, and the first ever Halo game from the Halo franchise, as well as many others. 2001 was a pretty big year filled with some of the craziest celebrity pop culture moments, scandals, and drama that kept everyone talking for several weeks. Earlier in the year, George W. Bush was inaugurated as the 43rd President of the United States alongside Vice President Dick Cheney, while FBI agent Robert Hansen got arrested for spying on the Soviet Union. El Chapo escaped from prison by bribing prison guards and hiding in a laundry cart. Christopher Walken danced around in that Fatboy Slim music video. And Whitney Houston said this at the first ever annual BET Awards after being awarded the Lifetime Achievement Award.
To my Nippy Inc. family, Donna, Lynn, Pat, Lori, Shelly, Aaliyah, Rose, Brian, Darren, and Ulysses, thank you for holding down the fort. Hey, wait! That's mine. That's mine. Let me handle this. You better chill. You better lay low. That's it.
At this year's Oscars, the film Gladiator received the most nominations with 12, taking home 5 awards, including Best Picture, as well as many others. Other big winners of the night included Russell Crowe for Best Actor, Julia Roberts for Best Actress, and Steven Soderbergh for Best Director. Also at this year's Oscars, Bjork wore her iconic swan dress that became the most talked about fashion statement of the year. At this year's Grammys, U2 won Song and Record of the Year for their hit Beautiful Day, while Steely Dan won for Album of the Year. Other big winners of the night included artists like Macy Gray, Sting, Toni Braxton, D'Angelo, Lenny Kravitz, Creed, Sheryl Crow, and Destiny's Child. Power couples Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman divorced after 11 years of marriage, while Jennifer Lopez and Diddy broke up after 3 years together. I wonder if it had anything to do with that club shooting incident, but that's neither here nor there. Soon after, she married actor Chris Judd later that year. Yeah, I guess J-Lo is just somebody that just can't stay single for some reason. Pop royalty Justin Timberlake and Britney Spears were the ultimate it couple back in 2001, wearing matching outfits at every public event from basketball games to award shows. They even showed up to the American Music Awards wearing matching denim outfits, which have been imitated, parodied, and the inspiration for many Halloween couple costumes over the years. Speaking of Britney, she also performed her song I'm a Slave for You at this year's VMAs. This was the moment where she officially shed her good girl teeny bopper image for a more grown and seductive one, all while dancing with live animals, including a giant yellow Burmese python. Her performance became one of the most iconic and memorable performances in VMA history, as well as garnering negative attention from PETA. Michael Jackson also had a pretty big year with the release of his 10th and final studio album, Invincible, in October of this year. The album topped the charts in several countries and spawned the hit single You Rock My World, which peaked within the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. As of making this video, the Invincible album is the most expensive album ever made and his most divisive amongst fans and music critics. In September, 2 concerts were held at Madison Square Garden to mark Jackson's 30 years as a solo artist. Michael performed with his brothers for the first time since 1984 and his last time performing with his brothers before his death in 2009. The show also featured many new up-and-coming artists as well as seasoned veterans to honor his legacy and contributions to pop music, being watched by 45 million people, making it one of the most successful musical specials ever aired on television. There was also a lot of celebrity deaths in 2001. This was the year we said goodbye to many legends like Joey Ramone, Anthony Quinn, Jack Lemmon, Nigel Hawthorne, and Beatles member George Harrison, who passed away at the age of 58 due to lung cancer. At just 49 years old, professional race car driver Dale Earnhardt lost his life in a fatal race car accident while completing his final lap during the Daytona 500. Fans in the arena as well as around the world witnessed his death in real time as it was actually televised to millions. His death was regarded in the racing industry as being a crucial moment in improving safety in all aspects of car racing, especially for NASCAR. Later that summer, on August 25th, at the age of 22, R&B singer and actress Aaliyah was killed in an airplane accident in the Bahamas alongside 8 other people on board when the overloaded aircraft they were traveling in crashed shortly after takeoff. This was a major shock and loss to the music industry because she was so young and she was just starting to really take off in her career. She was definitely taken away too soon, and I just wonder what her career would have looked like today if she would have lived, you know? Within a few weeks, Aaliyah's untimely death would unfortunately get overshadowed by one of the darkest and depressing days that changed the course of American history. Hey everybody! Yes, I know, a whole face reveal. Yes, I got a whole fresh haircut. Yes, I know, a whole... Really? Hey everybody, yes, I know, I'm here with the whole face reveal. Yes, enjoy my face, cause you never get to see my face. But anyways, so what we're gonna talk about in the next part of the video might be a little bit triggering to some people. It might be a little bit triggering to some people, so if you wanna skip ahead, I completely understand. There's gonna be a timestamp somewhere over here where my finger is. And you know, if you feel sensitive or you just wanna skip ahead, just feel free to skip to this timestamp right here to hear me talk about, you know, something else like the movies or TV shows or whatever else. But other than that, if you wanna stick around, make sure you watch the whole thing, that you're educated, and that you have a tissue ready or whatever. And if you made it this far in the video, don't forget to subscribe down below. I'll see y'all later.
Two planes have crashed into the World Trade Center in New York.
There have been a series of terrorist attacks in the United States.
Pictures just in showed the building already on fire, with smoke billowing from the upper floors. We have no details on why the planes hit the building, nor so far of any deaths or injuries.
All airports in New York
Pictures
are
were shot
closed.
just a few moments ago.
What started off as a pretty normal and quiet Tuesday morning quickly turned into a nightmare as Americans and the rest of the world all witnessed the horrific events that took place throughout the day. For those who don't know or are too young to remember, September 11th, 2001, also known as 9/11, was one of the worst days in American history due to the terrorist attacks that took place that morning. 4 commercial airplanes were hijacked, all crashing into some of the country's well-known landmarks, being carried out by Al-Qaeda against the United States. The first 2 planes crashing into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City, the third crashing into the Pentagon in Virginia, and the 4th plane crashing in rural Pennsylvania during a passenger revolt. President George Bush was actually at an elementary school in my home state in Florida when he first heard the devastating news, all while keeping his composure to not scare the teachers and kids. On September 20th, he addressed the nation and a joint session of Congress regarding the events, the rescue and recovery efforts, as well as his intended response to the attacks.
On September the 11th, enemies of freedom committed an act of war against our country.
Approximately 3,000 people lost their lives due to what took place on 9/11, making it the deadliest terrorist attack in history. In response to the attacks, the United States waged the multi-decade global war on terror to eliminate hostile groups deemed terrorist organizations, as well as the foreign governments positioned to support them. The 9/11 attacks resulted in immediate responses including domestic reactions, closings and cancellations, hate crimes, xenophobia, as well as international and military responses. The September 11th attacks also led to the US wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, as well as additional homeland security spending. The fun, bright, upbeat, carefree, and optimistic nature of the 1990s quickly disappeared as the attacks marked a significant turning point in American culture. Things just became more serious and sterilized as Americans questioned their new reality. Immediate responses to 9/11 included greater focus on home life and time spent with family, higher church attendance, and increased expressions of patriotism such as the flying of American flags. Heightened security measures were also taken into action as paranoia was at an all-time high for several months amongst many Americans. As a result, the Transportation Security Administration, or TSA for short, was created to inspect passengers and luggage before traveling. Airports, theme parks, cruise lines, and more really took safety precautions more seriously to make sure that this would never happen again. Okay, let's talk about some more lighthearted things that happened on or after 9/11. As expected, multiple industries were greatly affected by the recent attacks, including the entertainment industry. Many films and TV shows that were either in production or completed had to rewrite scenes, edit things out entirely, were postponed, or got canceled due to the recent events still being fresh in the minds of many Americans. Shortly after the attacks, Sony recalled their first trailers and posters for their upcoming Spider-Man film due to the inclusion of the Twin Towers being visible in both. The towers were quickly edited out from the film before its theatrical release in 2002, as well as any future promo, although some people say that they forgot to edit it out from this one scene where you can see it, you know, in his eyes. Disney's Lilo and Stitch was another film that had to be quickly edited before its theatrical release. The scene where Stitch hijacks a plane in a high-speed chase flying over the city of Honolulu was changed to him hijacking was changed to him hijacking a spaceship while flying over Hawaiian terrain, which I think was a better choice. Throughout the first half of the 2000s, many films focused more on comedy, romance, or fantasy as a way of escapism over the tragedy and disaster films that were big during the 90s. After many documentaries, interviews, and research, we finally got a proper 9/11 film, World Trade Center, which was later released to cinemas in 2006. Several TV series, most notably The West Wing and Third Watch, produced special episodes addressing the attacks, while the sitcom Friends actually had a scene from an episode pulled entirely from television.
The law prohibits any joking regarding aircraft hijacking or bombing. You don't have to worry about me, ma'am. I take my bombs very seriously.
Sir, you want to come with us?
In terms of music, the rest of the year was full of countless tributes, all dedicated to the victims from some of the biggest artists. Approximately 150 songs that were deemed potentially sensitive were temporarily suspended from radio stations, including every Rage Against the Machine song. Janet Jackson actually postponed a concert in Tampa, Florida, scheduled for the day of 9/11, and she later canceled the entire European leg of her All For You tour due to travel concerns after the attacks. The alternative band My Chemical Romance formed in September 2001 after lead vocalist Gerard Way actually witnessed the collapse of the World Trade Center in person.
Like a lot of people that are fans of the band know the story, but I remember it was like watching a horror movie, and I remember I didn't understand it at the time, but what I ended up processing in my head was, this isn't a game. Life isn't a game. This isn't something you just waste.
Some notable albums that were released on 9/11 included Jay-Z's The Blueprint, Bob Dylan's Love and Theft, POD's debut album Satellite, Ben Folds' Rockin' the Suburbs, Nickelback's Silver Side Up, and Mariah Carey's infamous Glitter, just to name a few. Even though the events that took place on September 11th happened over 20 years ago, the impact that it left on culture can still be felt today. This was honestly one of the craziest pop culture moments in recent memory and has become a day that we will never forget. 2001 was a very eventful year for the film and television industry. There were so many major films that were released throughout this year, making 2001 one of the most memorable and significant years for films during the 21st century thus far. Throughout the year, we witnessed the start of new franchises, trilogies, and some non-English speaking films that broke many box office records. This year saw a wide variety of genres dominate the big screen, including comedies, rom-coms, action-adventures, thrillers, sci-fi, animation, fantasy, and many others. Speaking of, the fantasy genre was really launched into mainstream culture this year with the release of the first installments of the Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings franchises. These two films really helped to popularize young adult novels, reforming the blockbuster to promote film franchises and cater to fandom communities. On December 19th, the first installment of the Lord of the Rings franchise was released to theaters and was directed by New Zealand director Peter Jackson. The film was acclaimed by critics and fans alike who considered it a landmark in filmmaking and an achievement in the fantasy film genre. It received praise for its visual effects, performances, Jackson's direction, screenplay, musical score, and faithfulness to the source material. It grossed over $868 million worldwide during its original theatrical run, making it the second highest grossing film of 2001 and the fifth highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release. The film features an ensemble cast including Elijah Wood, Ian McKellen, Liv Tyler, Sean Astin, Orlando Bloom, Cate Blanchett, Andy Serkis, and so many other big names. This was actually Elijah Wood's breakout role where he became a global superstar overnight for his portrayal of the young hobbit Frodo Baggins. After the success of the novels in the late 90s, Harry Potter was quickly adapted into a screenplay for the big screen. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was released in theaters worldwide in November, becoming one of the most popular and anticipated film releases of the year. Its story follows Harry's first year at the fictional school Hogwarts as he discovers that he comes from a bloodline of wizards and begins his formal wizarding education. Fans of the franchise quickly fell in love with its detailed story, immersive theming, special effects, soundtrack, settings, costume design, as well as the characters Harry, Ron, Hermione, Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, Lord Voldemort, and many others. Due to its massive popularity, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, grossing $974 million worldwide at the box office during its initial run, and made over $1 billion with subsequent re-releases. It became the highest grossing film of 2001 and the second highest grossing film at the time. On May 18th, DreamWorks Animation Studios released their breakout film Shrek, starring everyone's favorite green ogre. This film quickly became a global phenomenon, grossing over $492 million worldwide, becoming the fourth highest grossing film of 2001, making it the summer event of the year. You just had to be there. It was widely praised by critics for its animation, voice performances, soundtrack, writing, and humor, being the perfect film for adults and children. The film's major success helped establish DreamWorks Animation as a competitor to Pixar and Disney in feature film computer animation. Shrek parodies other fairy tale adaptations and stories, primarily animated Disney films, with a modern twist, making it one of the most memorable, relatable, and unique films in all of animation. Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, Cameron Diaz, and John Lithgow were perfectly casted as the voices of Shrek, Donkey, Princess Fiona, and Lord Farquaad, as they all bring something fun and memorable to their characters. Everything about this film was just chef kiss, and was one of my favorite movies growing up, and still holds up today with lines that I still quote, like the Duloc scene, the Robin Hood scene, the ogres are like onion scene, and that "do you know the Muffin Man?" Yeah, that scene lives rent-free in my mind.
The Muffin Man? The Muffin Man!
Another major animated film released this year was Pixar's Monsters, Inc. The film was released to theaters on November 2nd and was yet another smash hit for Pixar. John Goodman and Billy Crystal were excellent choices to voice the two lead characters, as their comedic timing and chemistry were just so perfect. Mike Wazowski and Sully are easily one of the best duos in all of animation, and maybe films in general, as they just meshed well as characters. Upon its release, it received critical acclaim and was a commercial success, grossing over $528 million worldwide, where it became the third grossing film of the year. The film was also nominated for the first Best Animated Feature in 2002, but lost to DreamWorks' Shrek, which was a major win for them as they were a pretty new company at the time. Monsters, Inc. quickly became another classic Pixar film with one of the most creative settings, visually stunning animation, charming story, and memorable characters. Other major films that were released in 2001 included Spy Kids, The Princess Diaries, Baby Boy, Amelie, The Fast and Furious, A Beautiful Mind, Rush Hour 2, Ocean's 11, Serendipity, Lara Croft Tomb Raider, Moulin Rouge, The Mummy Returns, Jurassic Park 3, Bridget Jones' Diary, Zoolander, Pearl Harbor, Training Day, Legally Blonde, Atlantis: The Lost Empire, Hardball, The Wedding Planner, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, Not Another Teen Movie, and Studio Ghibli's critically acclaimed Spirited Away, as well as many others. Just like films, 2001 was a pretty stacked year for new and exciting television shows. Throughout the year, there was just so many new TV series that captured the hearts of many and became pop culture staples throughout the 2000s decade. There were so many new show premieres this year, ranging in a variety of genres, including sitcoms, cartoons, action adventures, dramas, and reality TV, which, speaking of, in the summer of 2001, Fear Factor premiered and quickly became one of the most popular TV shows of the year. Fear Factor was a stunt dare show hosted by Joe Rogan, where men and women competed against each other in a variety of 3 crazy stunts for a grand prize of $50K. The show saw massive success in the early 2000s due to its unhinged and bizarre challenges that took many Americans by storm. Each week, the contestants would perform a wide range of challenges, facing their fears ranging from jumping from tall buildings, eating worms, and everything in between. You name it, they did it. The 2000s sure had a lot of trashy television shows around this time.
How you feeling, Pete?
This ain't cool, man.
You alright?
In January of this year, Disney Channel premiered their newest comedy series, Lizzie McGuire, which starred Hilary Duff. The show was about a girl who learns to navigate the personal and social issues of her teenage years, balancing school, friends, family, and more. You know, the typical slice of life, coming of age story that was trendy around this era. Lizzie McGuire was one of Disney Channel's defining shows of the early 2000s, and was one of the most popular and influential teen shows at the time. The show was known for its quirky yet relatable humor as well as the Y2K aesthetic and fashion choices that are still recreated to this day. This show also launched Hilary Duff to the mainstream as she became a teen idol sensation overnight. Another really popular show that premiered this year was Scrubs. Premiering on NBC in October, Scrubs was a medical sitcom that followed the lives of employees and interns at the fictional Sacred Heart Hospital, which was a teaching hospital for new upcoming doctors. Scrubs featured an ensemble cast including Zach Braff, Sarah Chalke, and Donald Faison as the main characters. The series quickly became one of the most popular TV series of the 2000s, with a total of 9 seasons and 150 episodes, making it one of the longest running scripted TV shows ever produced on cable television. The series was noted for its fast-paced slapstick comedy and crazy scenarios presented mostly as the daydreams of the central character John J.D. Dorian. The show also had many scenes where the main character would narrate his inner thoughts to the viewers, which really became a trend in modern television shows around this time. Scrubs bridged the gap in the 2000s between scripted medical shows like ER and Grey's Anatomy. Other major TV series that premiered in 2001 included My Wife and Kids, Smallville, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, Murphy's Law, So Little Time, One-on-One, Reba, Oswald, Taina, According to Jim, Samurai Jack, The Guardian, The Proud Family, The Fairly Odd Parents, Totally Spies, Degrassi, The Next Generation, Justice League, Stanley, Invader Zim, and The Bernie Mac Show, amongst many others.
I'm not supposed to throw anything. I should have put a dent in your head the same way you did my car. It's all right for me to do that, Cooley?
From start to finish, 2001 was a pretty interesting and fun year for mainstream music. This was a weird time for popular music as many trends from the late 90s were still lingering around, and the 2000s musical landscape was just starting to form its own identity. By this year, music video countdown shows like TRL, Top of the Pops, and 106 & Park were some of the hottest TV shows amongst mostly teenagers and young adults. These music video countdown shows really had a chokehold on the youth during this era. Millennials really had the best of both worlds around this time, watching these shows after school, buying the latest CDs, and talking about it the next day at school or work. You just had to be there. Throughout the year, there was just so many big hits, major album releases, and artists that made 2001 one of the most memorable years for mainstream music. 2001 was a year full of variety as we saw many comebacks, one-hit wonders, big groups, as well as newcomers who would later dominate the rest of the 2000s decade. Many genres saw massive commercial success this year with everything from hip-hop to country to nu metal and R&B. On October 31st, 2000, Atlanta-based hip-hop duo Outkast dropped their 4th studio album, Stankonia, which quickly became one of the hottest albums of 2001. Big Boy and Andre 3000 worked to create an expansive and experimental musical album, incorporating a diverse blend of styles including funk, rave music, psychedelia, gospel, and rock, with a dirty South-oriented hip-hop sound. Stankonia received universal acclaim from music critics upon its release, and has since been regarded by many to be one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 charts, selling over 530,000 copies during its first week. This album spawned the hits B.O.B., So Fresh and So Clean, and Miss Jackson, which the latter would go on to become the group's first Billboard #1 single and their biggest hit up until that point. Pop diva Jennifer Lopez also had a pretty busy year, from her messy, publicized breakup with Diddy to starring in major films, as well as her musical releases, made her one of the most talked about celebrities of the year. This was the prime time to be a J-Lo fan, as she was just everywhere this year. In January of that year, she became the first woman to have a #1 film and album simultaneously, with the release of her highly anticipated sophomore album J-Lo, and her rom-com The Wedding Planner, co-starring Matthew McConaughey. Despite receiving mostly negative reviews, The Wedding Planner was able to become a box office success, even though it is a pretty forgettable rom-com from the 2000s. J-Lo's album became the most successful album of her career, selling 12 million copies worldwide. The album included many songs that would become many of her signature hits like Love Don't Cost a Thing, I'm Real, which featured Ja Rule, and Play, amongst many others. After some pretty crazy lineup changes, controversy, and drama in just a year, R&B girl group Destiny's Child would have a pretty historic and memorable 2001. Kelly Rowland, Michelle Williams, and Beyonce Knowles would become a trio and dominated the year as they had become inescapable in 2001. You couldn't go anywhere without seeing these ladies or hearing their songs songs as they were just everywhere, from red carpet events to award shows, interviews, music videos, and even making appearances on Sesame Street as many celebrities did at the time. They also sang the theme song for Disney Channel's latest animated series, The Proud Family, which was one of my favorite shows growing up. Matthew really had those girls working.
Destiny's Child loves the Disney Channel. It's really cool. It's a great channel for kids. We saw a preview of the cartoon and we can't wait till it comes out.
Turn that back on, I was watching it.
Earlier in the year, at this year's Grammys, they performed and later won their first 2 Grammy Awards for Say My Name, with Best R&B Vocal Performance by a Duo or Group, and Best R&B Song. They would also earn an American Music Award for Favorite Soul R&B Band/Duo. On April 25th, 2001, Destiny's Child released their 3rd studio album, Survivor, which became one of the most anticipated releases that year. Its lyrical themes explored dynamics between women, self-esteem, independence, friendship, and romantic relationships. This album was a big deal in the early 2000s, also serving as foundation for Beyoncé's eventual solo career, as she would later go on to dominate. This album spawned many major hits that dominated the year, including Independent Women Part 1, Survivor, Bootylicious, and many more. While being a commercial global success, the album debuted atop the US Billboard 200 with first week sales of 663K, later becoming the 7th highest selling album of the year. As of now, Survivor has sold over 10 million copies worldwide, making it one of the highest selling albums ever by a girl group. Janet Jackson was one of the standout artists of the year as she released her 7th studio album, All For You, in the spring of 2001. It debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 with 605K copies sold in its first week, this being the highest first week sales of her career and among the highest first week sales by a female artist ever in history. The album saw a return to an upbeat dance style, receiving generally positive reception from music critics and fans. The album's lead single, All For You, became one of the most played songs on US radio that year, as well as becoming one of the defining hits of 2001. On the Billboard Hot 100, All For You spent a total of 7 consecutive weeks at the #1 spot, making it the longest running #1 single of the year, as well as Janet's 10th and final #1 single, You Know, before her career was ruined a few years later. The video was nominated at this year's MTV Video Music Awards in the categories of Video of the Year, Best Female Video, Best Dance Video, and Best Choreography, but unironically lost all nominations, which is just so crazy to me. I mean, this video is peak cinema. Janet would later go on her All For You tour later that summer and would eventually cancel her European leg of the tour after the September 11th attacks. Other major hits from this album included Son of a Gun, which peaked at number 28, Someone to Call My Lover, which peaked at number 3, and Doesn't Really Matter, which peaked at the #1 spot the year prior. Without question, the biggest breakout artist of 2001 was none other than Alicia Keys. At just 20 years old, Alicia Keys became a global superstar overnight with the release of her debut album, Songs in A Minor, in the summer of 2001. Songs in A Minor established Alicia Keys' popularity both inside and outside of the United States, where she became the best-selling new artist and R&B artist of the year. Sonically, the album incorporated and blended classical piano, R&B, soul, and jazz, making it one of the most unique and memorable album releases of the year. The album would go on to sell 6.2 million copies in the United States and 12 million internationally, making it one of the most successful debut albums of all time. The album was mostly known for its lead single, Fallen, which became one of the most popular songs of the year, spending a total of 6 weeks at the #1 spot on the Hot 100. Alicia was able to captivate music listeners with her raw vocal abilities, songwriting, and piano skills, which helped her to become one of the biggest and most influential artists of our generation. Some of the hottest songs of 2001 included Ride With Me by Nelly, Tell Me, Drops of Jupiter by Train, Let Me Blow Your Mind by Eve and Gwen Stefani, Peaches and Cream by 112, Stutter by Joe and Mystical, It Wasn't Me by Shaggy and Rick Rock, Hit 'Em Up Style by Blue Cantrell, How You Remind Me by Nickelback, Get Your Freak On by Missy Elliott, If You're Gone by Matchbox 20, Family Affair by Mary J. Blige, Hanging by a Moment by Lifehouse, You Remind Me by Usher, I'm a Slave for You by Britney Spears, and the summer smash Lady Marmalade by Christina Aguilera, Lil' Kim, Maya, and Pink, amongst many other songs. 2001 was a pretty crazy year from start to finish with some of the biggest pop culture moments we have ever witnessed. If you were old enough to remember, this was just such a bizarre yet interesting time to be a millennial or Gen Xer. There were other major events that took place in 2001, including the Gary conduct scandal with his then intern Chandra Levi, Hillary Clinton being sworn into Senate, Cartoon Network launching Adult Swim, the introduction of the Bratz dolls, Mariah Carey's theatrical film debut Glitter flopping at the box office, the first ever BET Awards, the first ever Victoria's Secret fashion show, the debut of the National Geographic Channel, the Spice Girls officially disbanding, the Life of Pi novel being published, Rudy Giuliani as Time's Person of the Year, and Bin Laden becoming the most wanted man in the world amongst many other events. Like I said earlier, 2001 was definitely a pretty crazy and eventful year from start to finish with some of the most memorable pop culture moments to ever exist. So I just want to know from you guys, what did you think of this chaotic year? What was your favorite memory of 2001? What did you think of 9/11? Do you remember where you were that day when it happened? Which songs and albums were your favorite? Which video games did you play this year? What were your favorite films? What were your favorite TV shows? What was the craziest celebrity scandal of the year? And what did you think of 2001 as a whole? Let me know down below. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. I really appreciate each and every one of you all. Feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more fun videos just like this. See ya!